Well, I'm here with a guest today. His name is Austin Cole, and Austin's an expert in an area we're talking a lot about. He's a licensed mental health counselor. He's a therapist, a speaker, and something we'll drill down on. He's a digital creator who has built a large following, helping people better understand themselves and their relationships. And I'm sure Austin, those two are entwined. Uh, we're hearing a lot of evidence that young men, an area that your practice focuses on, that young men are struggling. Why is it?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like just kind of with where we're at with a lot of things, just in the social climate right now, a lot of people in general are struggling, but young men in particular. And, you'll hear me say a lot in our conversation, a lot of things about social media. And I don't want to go ahead and demonize it because it is a great thing. Like you said, I've been fortunate enough to have a platform to where I can have an impact on the lives of not just young men, but just a broad spectrum of people. But, you know, in my opinion, I feel like a lot of young men are struggling because of the unintended consequences of social media. So, you know,
Social media in and of itself isn't the problem. It's in fact, it can be very beneficial, I would assume, in terms of relationship building, relationship maintenance, but it's the misuse of social media that can cause the trouble.
yes, I would say misuse, but to be more exact, I would say it's the misinterpretation because social media can be great for catching up with people, with connecting with people. Like, I'm sure you've heard of, the male loneliness epidemic, what's going on right now. And it's ironic to think about that considering the day and age that we're in where we're so connected. Like, there's never been a time in human history where you can connect with thousands of people just like that, whether it's on TikTok, Instagram, or whatever, or you can even reach out to people that are in other countries. Never been a time in human history like that. But yet, right now, young men are more disconnected than ever. And I think that's a lot of these beliefs and mindsets that social media has curated and created about what success looks like, about what happiness looks like, about what, self acceptance and gratification looks like. And social media plays a big role in forming those beliefs in the minds of young men. And I feel like that's a big reason why a lot of these young men are struggling. It's like social media is creating these maladaptive beliefs, senses of self, these identities that are really just, not based in reality and that aren't good for young men.
What attracted you to this profession?
So there's not a whole lot of men in the mental health field. I know you have experience before you were a very successful entrepreneur being a man in the mental health field. And nowadays there's just not a whole lot of men out there, especially not a whole lot of men that are in my age range that want to, work with the kind of men that I work with. And so just kind of seeing that.
Why do you think that is? I heard, I spoke with Dr. James Ellis recently, and, he's a Manhattan therapist, Manhattan, New York-based therapist, and he said 80% of all the therapists in the country are female, and so that he's overwhelmed in his practice because a lot of men would rather be more comfortable chatting with a man, working with a man. Is that the same demographics in California where you practice?
Pretty much, yeah. And I think a big reason why there's so many less men compared to women is, men for the most part, they like to work with things. They like to work with numbers. They like to work with objects, whereas women for the most part, and I'm speaking just kind of generally, again, there's outliers in these cases, but women for the most part, they like to work with people, whether that's in nursing, whether that's in social work, mental health,
Teaching.
women teaching, exactly. My wife's a teacher, so I can go ahead and speak to that as well. But yeah, so much of it comes down to the fact that men like to work with very concrete things. They like to work with numbers. They like to work with products. They like to work with these tangible items. Whereas with women, they like to work more on the relational side. So I feel like that's a big reason why there's that discrepancy in terms of, there's so many women in this field and not a whole lot of men. And just me growing up as a young man in Southern California, kind of a bit of my story where I came from is, you know, there weren't a whole lot of male therapists out there, and, my parents got divorced when I was at a very developmental age, and I had a great therapist. She was a great lady, bit of an older lady, but that wasn't what I needed at that time. I needed someone that could be more of like a mentor, more of like a guide, and someone that could help me understand these things I was going through. My parents did a great job. My parents, they were fighting their own stuff with what was going on with the divorce and the things that come from that, but I needed somebody that could be, like a bigger brother to me in a sense. I have an older
Yes.
sister, but I needed someone that was like an older brother that could really guide me and help me with a lot of these life things and really just be be a good kind of figure for me, and I didn't have that. So when I got to the age, I'm like, I want to be that for my younger self.
Austin, what would you say are the biggest misconceptions about mental health? Maybe if you wanna be specific about men's mental health.
Yeah, so I would say the biggest misconception about mental health is that no one struggles. Like one of the things that I can't stand when people say is when people kind of make it a bigger deal when they're like, oh, like I have anxiety or oh, I have depression, I have this, I have that. Because the fact of the matter is everyone has that. Everyone has had that. Everyone will have that. It's just some have it to varying degrees. Some have it, various lifespans and stuff like that. So I think what a lot of people get wrong is when they think, oh, like I only have anxiety and no one else has it. It's like, no, no, no. Everyone else has it. Some people just might deny it or they might feel it.
Had the opportunity to, speak at a commencement, class last year at St. John's University, and Lisa Sabat, who's on my chief of staff here, we were working on the remarks, and there were just 3 messages I wanted to convey, and one of them was about, we had just done some work and an interview with a professor up at Harvard, and he was worked on the happiness research project, and her point, and I stole the line for the speech was, over 80 years on this research project, tens, 20, 30, $40 million spent, and what did they find out? Your mother was right. Stay in touch with your sister. Call your mother. Eh, Write to your dad. Call him up. Spend some time with him. Put your arm around his shoulder. Watch a game together. It's all about relationships. And you want to measure people's happiness? The depth and breadth of relationships is what's going to be the barometer and the indicator of how happy we are.
Yeah, exactly. It's like I always like to say relational wounds heal in relationships, right? It's like even in the work that I do, like a lot of the stuff that we do in the therapy room is great, but really it's just helping you. It's like the training ground so you can take it out into the real world because, you can be healed, but if you heal in isolation, you're going to get out there and, all the work you did is going to be for naught, right? You have to put yourself in these situations. You have to surround yourself with the right people and stuff like that. And so I very much like to look at relationships almost kinda like, like food diet, right? Because it's like, if you're putting bad foods into your body, guess what? You're not gonna feel good. If you have bad relationships and you're surrounding yourself with people that make you feel bad about yourself, that belittle you, that, you know, diminish the stuff that you do, then guess what? You're gonna feel bad about yourself. Like, you could be the most mentally strong person ever, but if you're constantly in environments where people are putting you down, making you feel less than, making you question your self-worth, eventually you're going to get to the breaking point to where you're going to start believing that and it's going to start impacting you. So, you know, the relationships that you have absolutely impact you. And that goes back to when you're a kid and also stays true to when you're a full fledged adult.
And let's probe a little bit around that subject. Uh, as a therapist, you're involved with your patients in a relationship. When you talked about, your needs as a young man and, being fortunate enough to have the, services of a therapist, but not what you were actually looking for, which was, yes, that work, but more importantly, you were looking for a big brother, a hero, a mentor, someone you could have a relationship with that would help you through those seas by being able to explore other ideas. How do you, on a professional basis, how do you, set the boundaries on the relationships you have from a professional therapist point of view?
So setting the boundaries honestly isn't very hard, but I'll kind of go a bit more into like the relational aspect and kind of what that looks like and what a lot of men kind of need. The way that I work is I am what I call an empowering therapist. Like if you look on my website, it says solution focused and empowering therapy because for so many men, they've been put down for so long. And I'm a big believer in the idea that your quality of life is very much determined by your quality of thoughts. So if you have really bad self talk, if you have just really harsh thoughts about yourself, then you're not going to live a very prosperous, a very happy, a very successful life because you're constantly being your own biggest judge. You're being your own biggest hater. So a lot of what I do is I become that empowering voice for them. So I become their own biggest fan. And in doing so, just because they see someone that's like, hey, this guy's saying a lot of great things about me that are true, that are not just kind of gassing me up, that helps them to believe in themselves, to feel good about themselves. And that's so much of really what it is. It's like
Sounds
once men,
foundational.
yeah, it is foundational because once men understand, hey, someone does care about me, someone does see the good in me, they can start to see it in themselves. And obviously, it's all rooted in truth. I'm never going to lie to people I work with. I'm never going to lie to people I speak with, but I just find the things that they say and then I really just go ahead and I blow it up. I make it very prevalent. I make it very known and I support them. I empower them. I cheer them on. And just in doing that, just in having that relationship right there, there's so much healing. There's so many things that can get done. And I actually had a great colleague of mine tell me this the other day, where he's like, so much in therapy might not be what you call therapy, but it's therapeutic. So, like,
Yes.
empowering someone, speaking about them in that way and having that relationship,
That's an
maybe,
important differentiation.
yeah. And it's like maybe some people don't look at that as a typical therapy where it's like, sit on my couch, let me go, let me validate, let me do all these things, and let me be the blank slate. Like maybe that's not therapy to some,
Maybe it's more
like what I do.
coaching.
Yeah. And that's what some people say. But, like my colleague told me the other day, he's like, it might not seem like therapy, but it's therapeutic because what's the goal at the end of the day? It's to help these men achieve their goals. And in my opinion, to help them become the best versions of themselves, whatever that might be, whether that's they have better anger regulation, whether that's they're more present in their marriage and with their kids, more intimate.
What would the average age of your patients be, of your clients?
Um, Average age, I would probably say around like 30, because I'll work with teenage because what I like to say is I work with males of all ages and life stages essentially. So I can work with, you know, the school age kid that's struggling with self-esteem or that doesn't have a good male role model. I can also work with the teenager who's, maybe struggling with some self-esteem or maybe some focus stuff. I could work with the 20 something year old, which this is my most popular demographic, the 20 something year old who feels really behind, who feels anxious, who sees everyone on social media getting married, getting promotions, buying a house, and feels really down on themselves and concerned about their future. But I also work with, the man in the late 30s, early 40s that's having relational struggles, that's having marital problems, that's struggling with being a father and stuff like that. So I guess the average age would probably be around 30, but I do mostly work with the 25 to about 35 demographic that, they're struggling with the keeping up with the Joneses mentality.
Yeah. Uh, let's be amateur sociologists here. I mean, I'm amateur, but
Let's do it.
what are the big macro trends that have changed generationally, that are putting more pressure on young men? A couple of people that I'm a fan of, like, Scott Galloway, from
Yeah.
NYU, who talks about the big tectonic plates that are plaguing and causing difficulty for young men, and he startled me with his recent work where he talks about, young men. I think he said that there are 17% of men 45 or younger who've never asked a girl out on a date. That's
Yeah.
staggering.
That's crazy.
45 years old.
Yeah.
And, then there's a remarkable number of young men, 20 to 25 that have never approached a female for, a companionship or a date or anything. It's just staggering, yeah. I would guess as an amateur sociologist that, COVID had something to do with that,
Yeah, I would
that,
agree.
DEI things about, the Me Too movement. Well, so many of my peers met their spouses in work situations.
Yeah.
And, I'd be afraid to do that because I'd be accused of harassment of some kind. Am I misreading those, or are they contributors?
No, I think they're contributors, but I think this is also a multi-layered, multifaceted sort of thing. I think there's a lot of things that go into it. I feel like, at least in my experience and being an amateur sociologist, I would say part of it is a lot of these young men, a lot of these men simply just don't know how to do it. Like, you can't expect someone to do something they don't know how to do. Like, I'm not very handy whatsoever. So if you give me a toolbox, nails, and a project, even if it's IKEA, I won't really know how to do it because I was never taught those things and that's not what I know how to do.
And you
But
can
with what
hire someone who will assemble that IKEA furniture very reasonably.
exactly, exactly. And hey, that's what my dad always told me. He's like, Austin, just get so successful in what you do that you can always hire a professional to go ahead and do it. So,
Uh-huh.
that's what I've been doing. But, you know, a lot of these men just firstly, they don't know how to do it because they were never taught it. And if you're never taught something or if you're never shown something, you can't really be expected to know how to do something. So I feel like for a lot of these men, it's the absence of a father, and it's also the absence of, having a male role model to go ahead and teach them and show them how to go ahead and do those things. And it's like as you get older, it gets harder to go ahead and learn that skill. It's like it's easier to learn how to ride a bike at 5 than it is to learn how to ride a bike at 45, right? Because there's all these different mental blocks, there's all these different feelings of shame, feelings of embarrassment and stuff like that. So I feel like that's one thing to add to it. Another thing I would add is the increase in instant gratification as it pertains to things like pornography and just all these different sources of lust that can kind of create like, you know, satiate that temptation of wanting intimacy, but through a very toxic, very bad way. I feel like that's been changing the brains, changing the minds of a lot of these young men. So instead of, chasing real relationships, they're chasing fake ones online that's kind of tricking the brain, tricking brain chemistry, which there's a ton of studies that explain this much better than I can. But it pretty much like satisfies that urge temporarily to where they don't feel necessarily the need to go out and pursue a romantic relationship or pursue intimacy because they can, unfortunately, get it in very easy and very destructive ways.
Make this spring one to remember. Have friends over for a Sunday brunch or celebrate special occasions like birthdays and baby showers with delicious food and gourmet gifts. So it's an evaluation on a risk reward basis, and it might be a misguided risk reward analysis, but it's easier to rather than risk being hurt or humiliated or rejected. Here, I'm not going to be rejected, is what you're saying. And so, if they look at the pros and cons, it's just easier. But if I look back about those big sociological changes that have happened, uh, and I think in my lifetime, my wife always talks about, oh, she was at Title IX. Now, most people don't know what Title IX was, but Title IX was legislation was passed by federal government that they had to have equal access for sports for men and women, and that's only a couple of few generations old, but it really has changed the landscape here in America, all for the better, by the way, but it has changed. And now, as I look at enrollment in undergraduate school and all of the professional schools, majorities now are all women. And I wonder how that happened. Well, I think it was access, but why did men stop pursuing those goals to the degree that they did? And what's the consequence of that when longer term in respect to relationships?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's something that's very much, we're feeling the ramifications of that today, but it's something we'll also feel the ramifications of a lot more kind of as time goes on, as, this road continues. And I feel like a lot of it, kind of like I alluded to earlier, goes to the fact that a lot of men nowadays are not empowered to go ahead and pursue things and chase things. It's like, you know, there's this whole topic of masculinity, which we can get into later, but I feel like a lot of men are not being pushed to go ahead and do these challenging things, to go ahead and do these things that grow them because there's some sort of fear of, being too masculine or being too much on one end or the other to where it's like, a lot of men are kind of staying more content and not engaging in things that you mentioned, like risk reward and stuff like that. So I feel like that's a big role that it plays is just, men just don't feel empowered to go ahead and do some of these things that men in the past would do. And I'm talking about like the good things. I'm not saying the toxic things. I'm not saying the, really bad things. I'm just saying the pursuit of difficult things and achieving challenges that, really push people beyond their limits, that break you, that make you, that have to go ahead and take you to a different level to achieve. I feel like that drive, that empowerment for, you know, this generation of guys is almost kind of gone.
Tell me about you, and then more generally, your client base and the people that you work with, and how do you counsel people around friendship? So, do you do an inventory with your clients about their friends, and how do you work with them? Are you conscious of maintaining a network of friends? And that would include men and women, but I think adult male relationships are critically important to our mental health. So, how do you think about the idea of friendship and helping people understand how they work to develop and maintain relationships? Friendships.
Yeah, no, I think friendships are a great thing. I'm a big believer in the idea that your network will determine your net worth, not just money wise, but
That's
self-esteem wise.
that's terrific. I love that.
Yeah, but
We'll be borrowing that, but
wise,
I'll
relation
give
wise.
you
Yeah,
attribution.
exactly. I can't remember who said it, but I, probably took it from somewhere and kind of like changed it around a little bit. But yeah, your network will determine your net worth, not just money wise, but fulfillment wise. You know, all these different areas. And I've been blessed enough to have a great, I have a wife who's incredibly amazing. She's my best friend. She supported me throughout all this journey of going to grad school, becoming a therapist, and being all those things. She's a teacher, so she had to take on a lot. She had to do all these things to go and help me get to where I am today. And, she's not just my wife, but she's my best friend. She's someone that we can go to Disney and go ahead and have all that. So having that is absolutely incredible. So I think it's important to have someone that's close to you, like a partner, to go ahead and be that best friend and be your biggest supporter in all these different ways. Because there were times when I really didn't believe in myself, but my wife did, and that was really what I needed. Now, to go to the friendship part, like the more friends part, I'm also fortunate that my friend group is a friend group I've had for over 10 years, for 15 years at this point, since I was early in high school, since I was in, I think, late middle school. And, they're very successful. They're very hardworking. They don't engage in any and never engaged in like drinking, drugs, risky behaviors, or anything like that. Like, they're the kind
That's
of guys.
unusual.
Yeah. And I'm just very fortunate to go ahead and I'm very fortunate to have found that at such a young age, especially considering what I was going through with my parents' divorce, with all the things that come from that. It would have been very easy for me to fall in with the wrong crowd. And then, you know, my life would be on a totally different trajectory. I probably wouldn't be here who I am today, nonetheless, speaking with you about these topics. But I'm fortunate to have such great friends like that who, we really fed off of each other. We pushed each other in high school. We were in sports. We were doing great things. Like we're all very successful in what we do now, but that's because of who we built each other into as we were growing up and as we were really just feeding off each other. It's like that Bible verse, iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another. That's,
Mhm.
I believe that to be unequivocally true. And in my work, you know, I don't tell people to have friends like I do. I just kind of allude to it. It's like, you need to have like a group of friends. Mostly if you're a guy, you mostly need your group of guys that, metaphorically, if you need to like, go to war, you can go to war with these guys. Like, if me and my boys, if we had to go out and we had to go ahead and do something, like we're in a movie and we had to take some things down, I believe we could go ahead and do it. I think it's the movie The Town with, like, Ben Affleck and Matt Damon,
Yes.
but, I think Jeremy Renner's there too, but one of the characters
Boston,
makes
set in Boston, wasn't it?
yeah, exactly. But one of the characters makes a comment where he's like, "You wanna have the kind of friend that when you go up to him and you tell him, 'Hey, we gotta do this. I don't know what's gonna happen, what's gonna go on, but I need you.'" Like, that's the kind of friend that you need, and there's a scene where Ben Affleck's character goes up to his friend and he's like, "Hey, I don't know what's gonna happen. There might be some trouble. We might get in trouble, but I need you." And the friend goes, "Okay, who's driving?" And just immediately goes with him. So
Yeah.
I always stress to men, like, you gotta
Where
have
I
your
grew up,
pack
the
of boys
reference
like that.
was, "Is he someone you do a bank job with?"
That's I mean, hey, that's a great point. It's that mentality. It's having these guys that will fight for you, always be in your corner, literally and
But
metaphorically.
that's a gift that you grew into,
Yes.
but now you're working with a patient who's 29 years old, and he says, "I really I feel like I'm doing okay in work, and, I'm dating a gal, we're probably gonna get married, but I started thinking about a wedding party, and I really don't have 4 or 5 good friends." Is something you ever hear?
It is something I have heard before, and, there are various things that we'll kinda, like, work through when that happens, 'cause those are also, like, deeper rooted things with, like, relationships, with attachment, and stuff like that, but on a more macro scale, that is something that a lot of men struggle with, and that's why I say I'm so fortunate to have had the friend group that I have had for so long, but it's like, if someone doesn't have a friend group and they really do want that, they really wanna have, like, that scrap pack, that pack of boys that's gonna always be with them, it's like you need to figure out what kind of friends do you want. Like, you need to build a silhouette of, okay, what behaviors would these people engage in? What traits do they want to have? And first, you need to make sure that you're like that too, because you will attract people that are like you. So if you're, you know, a lazy person, if you're not really doing a whole lot, if you're just kind of getting by, maybe you're drinking, maybe you're smoking weed, how can you expect to attract and keep people that are, they're the grinders. They're waking up, they're working out, they're drinking their smoothies, they're putting in 8 hours of work, they're working out after work and stuff like that. It's like, how can you expect to attract and keep friends like that if you are not that yourself? So I really help them become the kind of person they want to become and then put themselves in opportunities to where they can attract people like that. So whether that's joining certain clubs, whether that's, finding
So
people in
let's
this.
let's break that down into 2 pieces. The first
Yeah.
piece is fix yourself
Yeah.
so that you're the kind of person other people wanna be around, so you're not
Yeah.
going to attract other people who just have the same problems you have. So that is inputs, what you eat, all the different inputs, the where you spend your time,
Yes.
the inputs are how you spend your time, what you put into your body, what you do physically. So those are all the inputs, and you help them get aware of their control over their own what they are, their own definition.
Yes.
And then as they start to achieve things there, how tell me, how do you counsel them in terms of how they seek out, uh, people who, people who, might be, casual relationships that they're getting to know them to decide if there's someone they want to invest in to help them mature into better friends? What do you advise them to do? In my world, it would all be about be the organizer. Be the
Yeah.
one who takes the risk and say, "Hey, 3 of us are gonna be getting together later. We're gonna stop over and watch the game. Would you care to join us?" I I think a lot of people really look to the host, the
Yeah.
organizer, the convener, and I think if you're the convener, you have a better shot, of having the opportunity to to begin relationships, to invest in relationships.
Yeah, no, 100%. I encourage being the organizer and taking that step, not relying on other people to take the first step for like whatever ego reason, like, oh, I want people to want me or oh, I want to be wanted. It's like, okay,
Mhm,
well, you can either want to be wanted and risk, people not reaching out to you, or you can reach out to people and then go ahead and get started from there. It's like you get to choose which one you want to do. Like that's
mhm.
that's your choice. Now, I encourage the latter and I agree with everything that you said, but what I also help them keep in mind is like, you know, you could be the best person ever. You can be, you know, guns a-blazing on your self-development journey, becoming your best self and doing all these things, but there are gonna be some people that just don't wanna come along for the ride. Like they, for whatever reason, don't wanna be a part of whatever it is that you're doing, and that's okay. That says more about them and what they want and
They
what
may have
they're
their
going.
own issues.
Exactly, and that's the biggest thing that I tell men on a broader spectrum, not just with friendships, but with relationships too, is like how people treat you says more about them than it does about you. Now, granted, you're not doing anything that's like really bad, really toxic or manipulative, but if you're just being yourself, if you're a pretty good person and people don't treat you right or don't want to be around you, more or less, that says more about them than it does about you. So I really help them to keep in mind of like, hey, there's gonna be some like not every person you meet is gonna want to be your friend. Like that's unfortunately what it is.
They
Has
may
very
not have
little
the
to do with you.
capacity. Mm.
Yeah, they may not have the capacity, they may not want to be friends, like, and they probably won't be able to explain it, but don't take that to heart. Just take that as okay,
They may
that
not be
is
as
what it
healthy
is.
as you are.
Exactly, and then I kind of turn it back on them. I'm like, "I'm sure there's been times in your life where someone really wanted to be your friend." This could even be as far back as kindergarten, where someone wanted to be your friend, and for whatever reason, you just didn't want to. Maybe it didn't have anything to do with them. Maybe you just didn't have the time, the capacity, or anything like that to have a friend. So, I just really normalize that for them and help them understand and not make it about themselves because it's so easy to be like, okay, like, it sounds like an elementary school thing, like, "Oh, they don't wanna be my friend, they don't like me," and all this stuff. Like, it's easy to think of that as, like, an immature thing, but we experience that as adults too, and I just help men kind of bring it back to, like, "No, it's not about you," like, some people are gonna like you, some people are not. Here's how I like to look at it, it's a better way to say it, you know, and a colleague of mine told me this, and I think is really true. So, in life, a third of people are gonna love you no matter what. Like, no matter what you do, who you are, a third of people are just gonna love
Starts
you.
with your mother.
Starts with your mother, exactly. And a third of people are gonna feel indifferent about you. They're not gonna care a lot, care a little, like, they're just gonna be, like, "Meh," about you. And a third of people are just not gonna like you no matter what. Now, we don't know why that is, don't know what that is, but that's just the reality of life, is, like, a third of people are gonna love you, a third of people are gonna feel indifferent, and a third of people are not gonna like you. And that's just okay. We just have to find the third of people that are going to love you and put our energy towards that because
Mhm.
we don't experience life, we experience the life we focus on. So if we're constantly focused on the people that don't like us or feel indifferent about us, then guess what, we're not going to like ourselves and we're going to feel indifferent about ourselves. But if we put our energy and our focus towards the people that do love us, that do care about us, then guess what, we're going to feel that way about ourselves.
Who's on your top 3 motivational speakers that you recommend beyond your own world, to people who ask?
Oof. So it very much depends on the kind of person that they are, but a lot of what I recommend is like a lot of, you know, Tony Robbins, a lot of David Goggins. I'm a big fan of the UFC, so I love Conor McGregor. So I love athletes and stuff like that. I love Tom Brady too. So I'll put on, a Tom Brady underdog kind of motivational playlist where he's like talking about all these different things, being picked in the sixth round, being picked 199, and all these things because I love the underdog story. Like, I love the story of a person who feels like they have no future. Their life is completely screwed up, but yet they somehow find a way back. And I love studying those people and I love passing those stories on to the very people that I come in contact with because, like, hey, if this person can do it, then why can't you do it? Like, if someone else has done it, you can certainly do it. If no one else has done it, then go and be the first to do it. So exercise, filling your mind with the right things are very big. And then another thing I would add on to kind of this mental health sort of diet is limiting time on social media because there's legitimate reasons why, scrolling increases anxiety because it triggers the amygdala, which is the fear or threat detection part of the brain, plays a big role in anxiety. So if you wake up in the morning and you're constantly scrolling on your phone for 20 or 30 minutes, you're starting your day off really bad. So you're starting your day off with a lot of anxiety, with a lot of just cortisol flowing through your veins. And so I really recommend that they really don't go on social media first thing in the morning and that they, have a bit of a slower morning. You eat your breakfast, you drink your water, you really take things slow. And if you want to go ahead and read, some affirmations, some devotionals in the morning, go ahead and do that. But I think the morning is the most important part to have a mentally healthy day.
Austin, that reminds me of a question that I jotted down earlier to ask you, which is, young men, what, how can they communicate that they're feeling stress without feeling weak?
Oof. How can they? Well, I guess it depends on who they're communicating it with. So, what I always, and I use social media a lot for this particular thing about like how to reach out for help, how to explain how you're feeling. But what I like to do on social media is make a lot of posts about like speaking to the friends of a guy who's struggling. It's like, you know, make sure you're the one reaching out. Make sure you're checking up on your boys. Like, I'll do videos where it's like, here's the signs that, that your guy or your boy is struggling mentally. He's on his phone more, he's responding, not as quickly and stuff like that. But I really encourage the people around someone who's struggling to really be active and not just be like, hey, if you need anything, reach out to me or give me a call. Like, I encourage people, like, no, you call them. And if they don't pick up, call them again. If they don't pick up, go to their house. Like, don't just offer things, tell them to do things. Don't be like, "Hey, if you wanna get dinner this week and talk, like, let's go ahead and let's do it." Like, no, tell them, "Hey, we're going to dinner at this place on this day at this time. I'll pick you up and I'll go." So, I like to encourage people to take an active role when they have someone that's struggling because it is hard to reach out for help. But in terms of, like, the individual.
So how can people, men, women, parents, who have concerns about their sons, how can they, tap into your work, your social media presence so that they can learn from you and maybe expose the person they're concerned about to your work?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if they're based in California, they can go to my website, which is austincoldtherapy.com. My social media
And
is
Cole is
all my name.
Cole,
So,
austincoletherapy.com.
yes. Yes, and then on TikTok, it's Austin and then Z as in Zachary Cole. So that's my TikTok, Austin Z Cole, and then Instagram is Austin Cole Therapy. So if they're in California or if they know the person that's in California that needs help, I can go ahead and help them on the therapeutic level. If they just want, education, support, whatever it might be from me, all my social media stuff is free. I give out a ton of education, a ton of inspiration, empowerment, all of those sorts of things on those channels. Or if they need help finding someone and they want to reach out to me, I can help them find someone in their state that can go ahead and help them. Because at the end of the day, I just care about people being their best selves, feeling better, finding that hope, and ultimately being their best selves, whether it's working with me or not.
Well, when people ask me the top 3 people I recommend people listen to help get themselves into a healthier state, you just jumped onto my top 3 list.
Thank you. I appreciate I know you've talked to a lot of great people. Scott Galloway is someone that I listen to a lot and have taken a lot of inspiration from. So I know that's a very prestigious list, and I greatly appreciate it.
And there's Arthur Brooks, who I don't wanna go a session without mentioning
Yes.
Dr. Arthur Brooks.
Yeah.
Uh,
Awesome.
he
Yeah, no, they're all great.
and you're all doing a good work, and thank you for that, Austin Cole. Thanks for spending time with us. I have so many notes here of things I'll be quoting you on. You're a terrific wordsmith, and that's
Really.
important because those
Yeah.
handles are what we need.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Yeah. No.
Austin. So
Absolutely.
so nice to spend time with you and learn from you.
Thank you, Jim.